Good morning, Council, and welcome to the November 4th, 2013 workshop of the Orlando City Council. This morning we're going to have a workshop presentation from the Orlando Magic and SEC Development regarding their proposed mixed-use development across from the Amway Center. We've had several over the course of the last year or so, and we're about to bring this to a conclusion. So over the last 10 years, we have undertaken several strategic planning exercises to ensure that our investments in public projects like the venues and Sunrail are catalysts for private investment and continue the redevelopment efforts in both downtown and Paramore. And we're beginning, as we come out of this recession, to see substantial private investment in downtown. SED has proposed purchasing the city-owned block across from the Amway Center to construct a $200 million office, retail, hotel, and convention center that will include the Orlando Magic's headquarters, and it is an opportunity to create jobs, generate tax revenue, because that property will go back onto the tax rolls, and draw additional people downtown. We're going to hear from Thomas on behalf of the CRA and lay out what the vision has been for that area, and then from Alex Martins, President and CEO of the Magic, on the development itself, and then Rebecca will bring it home on the deal points. Thomas?
Mayor and Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Let me just say, as the Executive Director of your Downtown Development Board and Community Redevelopment Agency, I am absolutely excited this morning. The Sports Entertainment District, or SED project as we've grown to call it, project aligns squarely not only with the vision for, but also the needs of our downtown as we continue to advance downtown Orlando as a destination of choice for an even broader demographic, including families, travelers, and Central Floridians. This morning, as the Mayor said, I'll provide context and supporting information. I'll then hand it over to Alex Martin, who will talk about the space program of the project, what it will actually be, and then Rebecca will address pertinent business and financial points to be considered. I don't have to tell this council, who is obviously very informed on such things and has been such a part of revitalizing downtown, of how important it is that cities have vibrant downtowns, because they're usually often used to judge cities, in fact. And of course, we know that in 2003 the mayor established the Downtown Strategic Transition Team, and that team was charged with creating a strategic vision plan for reaching a robust and vibrant downtown. Part of that effort was a cornerstone subcommittee who, after months and months of work, came up with a cornerstone plan, as they called it, which addressed three critical needs. And a cornerstone plan was to identify and prioritize cornerstone projects that will create the maximum catalytic impact for downtown Orlando. The three projects they came up with were these. Number one, retain the Orlando Magic. That NBA presence is critical. And of course, with Amway Center and the partnership that we have with the Magic, I think we can put a check by that one, fortunately. Number two on the list was a performing arts center of world-class quality, and of course, again, we can put a check on that one since that is under construction across the street. And number three on that list was a downtown conference center. The Cornerstone Subcommittee recognized that a downtown conference center would fill an underserved market niche, that it needed to be built in conjunction with a hotel. And I think it's important to note that based on the collaboration and communication then, because it was not seen, the hotel and the conference center part of it was not seen as competing with the Orlando Orange County Convention Center, both the Visit Orlando, which was called the CVB at that time, as well as the convention center was supportive of such a project. Also, you know, of course, that statutorily we are required to follow our own redevelopment plan, and I just would like to point out that the redevelopment plan for your CRA recognizes that the growth of the hospitality industry actually will benefit and support all other market sectors within the central business district in downtown, retail, residential, office, and others. And it also points out that as that CBD matures, this submarket will cater to the business traveler and the visitor seeking the urban experience. The SED project, I think, fits squarely into that point and avails us to those business travelers seeking that urban experience. And finally, I'd like to point out, for the record, because of course it is important, that the redevelopment plan indicates that provides that the CRA may provide support and funding for new downtown conference centers and hotels. Target demographics, we know that downtown Orlando is known as a vibrant place during the day from 8 to 6. We've got 75,000 people that work down here, and we have many social and entertainment options at night. We also know from our research and from our knowledge of the area that at night we tend to be a destination skewing a little younger than center. We think that the addition of a conference center and hotel, along with the rest of the program for the SED, would bring a more balanced demographic into downtown. Now, Visit Orlando tells us that there are somewhere around 800 meetings between the size of 500 and 1,000 delegates that come to this market on an annual basis. Obviously, a conference or convention center will provide options, further options to business and convention travelers visiting the area. And as I said earlier, though we're strong from 8 to 6 with 75,000 workers, and we're strong from 11 p. to 2 a.m. with a vibrant nightlife, it's no secret that we're fairly lacking in pedestrian density between the hours of 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. Those are the hours, of course, that your quality restaurants would be serving dinner. And that's why if you check, you'd find that most of our restaurants in downtown do much better at lunch and really struggle those that depend on a dinner market. Also, I think it's important to note that though the downtown submarket leads the overall local market hospitality-wise for ADR, or the average daily rate, we lag behind the overall market in occupancy level within our hotels. A conference center attached to a hotel in downtown would increase the occupancy of those hotels in the area. Some demographic or statistical information, again, from Visit Orlando, our friends there. The average household income, just under $127,000. They spend 3 nights on average per trip. And the spending party, each party spends an average of $860. So if we could create an option that would attract just one average medium group per week, so about 50 meetings a year, if you would, and this is a hypothetical, obviously, then at 750 attendees, and that is the median between the 500 and 1,000 that I talked about, and each party consisting of 1.6 people, that would bring another 60,000 annual visitors and put them on the sidewalks in the streets of downtown on an annual basis. We think that's important. As you look to where conventionees spend their money, 44% of it is in dining. I think that goes right to the root of what we're saying. We like to encourage more full-service dining restaurants in downtown, and we can achieve that. 25% in entertainment, we can address that. Shopping, 24%, and 12% is spent on nightlife. So 4 out of those 5 areas, downtown would be able to directly benefit from the spending from these conventioneers. Your venues plan, you'll recall from many years ago, and showing that we're trying to move west and extend our urban fabric west. Again, I think this achieves that. City View was a great start, but I mean, any of us can see that City View was built almost on an island at that time, and now with the critical mass of development that this would enhance the goods and services for the Paramore community and the west side, but also would enhance the overall sense of place for downtown. It would strengthen the urban fabric that's knitting together the central business district and downtown with our west side, with Paramore, if you will. And the scale of that development enhances the walkability and leads to higher pedestrian counts, as I've just mentioned to you. So the big question, should the CRA invest? I would like to point out that there is precedent for this. You'll recall that some of the other projects that were named by the recommendations of the transition team, the strategic transition team, were that we have a movie theater as well as a major grocery store in downtown. The CRA has invested in both of those amenities, and I think it's evident that they are paying off with dividends to today. Also, I'd like to point out that, and we could have done a list 10 times as long, perhaps, at least 5 times as long. But I wanted to point out that it's not unusual for municipalities to invest in conference centers or convention centers and hotels in their downtown. There's a list of some of the cities that our research noted. Again, that list could be much, much longer if we need it to be, and we're happy to supply even more names if there is a need. Finally, I'd like to point out that a United States Government Accounting Office, a GAO report dated way back in 1998, had this to say about convention centers. As you can see there, convention centers, and I'll just read that. Convention centers generally cannot earn enough direct revenues to cover all of their recurring operating costs or their construction costs. However, cities and increasingly states sponsor convention centers with the expectation of significant direct and indirect economic benefits to the area from spending by out-of-town convention delegates that will increase local and state tax revenues to offset both operating losses and construction costs of the convention centers. So I'll leave you basically saying that this project we feel is a very, very important one. As I said in the beginning, it serves not only a vision, but the SCD feels many needs for downtown Orlando. It will strengthen us as a destination of choice, if you will, and continues to advance downtown in the very dynamic way that your leadership has allowed us to proceed already. At this point, I'll step aside and ask Alex Martins to come up with the really exciting stuff to show us just what the SCD will consist of. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Mayor, Commissioners, City staff, good morning. Good to be back before you again today to discuss the further development of the Amway Center District, Paramore, and downtown Orlando. It was a little over 6 years ago where we stood before you and we were all talking about the merits of the current site of the Amway Center and why that specific site would be good for the development of downtown Orlando and our region. And at the time, we talked about how our studies showed that these facilities in the core of downtowns throughout America have created downtown redevelopment in places like Nashville, Columbus, Charlotte, Kansas City, and Los Angeles, and many more, where redevelopment has occurred around these new sports and entertainment facilities to really bring about economic growth, as well as developing the downtown cores of those cities. As Thomas has pointed out to you, the Venues Master Plan also set out an early vision for this district of our downtown. When the current Amway site was identified and approved, two important principles were set in place. First, to create a world-class venue for our community to enjoy, and secondly, to lay the important groundwork for redevelopment of the Church Street corridor and the revitalization of downtown Orlando. Of course, timing is everything, and during the time that the Amway Center has been in existence over the last 3 years, we've been rebounding from perhaps the most difficult recessionary period in the history of Orlando. And our expectation about the development around the Amway Center has yet to come to fruition because of that recessionary period. But we believe that the time is now, and we believe that as the Orlando Magic and investors in Paramore and downtown Orlando, that the time has come to spark that redevelopment around the Amway Center. These good times don't preclude from the need of extensive study and research as to the viability of a development by the private sector in the core of downtown, and we've, as you know, taken months of research to learn many lessons from around the country about how these developments have been successful. From the importance of placemaking and public space to the challenge of finding the right retail establishments that complement the area, to a hotel business model that not only offers downtown's next full-service hotel, but also, as Thomas has pointed out, allows for the return of conventions and conferences to downtown, and also brings vitality to the downtown core. These major investments in the marketplace simply take time to set in place. We've been transparent to our need for time to ensure that the investment criteria is correct for a project of this size and risk. And to date, we have spent over $1 million in research, and we'll spend more after today if you choose to approve the contract, in making sure that it meets the standards for ourselves, the downtown venue plan, and for our community. So we come to you today having elected to take the next key step and purchase the property for development. Our planning to date has engaged a nationally renowned design firm of RTKL. Some of you may be familiar with the fact that RTKL designed the major portions of the redevelopment around the Staples Center in Los Angeles. At a later date, after we refine the early forms, we will share the final plans. However, I'd like to show you today the early concepts that have come to shape in our decisions and in our vision. I'll direct you to your monitors. This overhead, and again, I would caution us to understand that all of these renderings are conceptual and subject to modification upon our final design. This first rendering shows you an overhead view of what it would look from the sky, the Amway Center at the bottom of your picture, and a major public plaza right in front of the front door of the Amway Center. It is the organizing feature of the entire project. This will be a place making complete the front door of the Amway Center area with a public plaza worthy of our fans, visitors, and other major events for downtown Orlando. We call it Orlando's Living Room, an interactive space to celebrate before and after events, as well as concerts, etc., with dining, entertainment, and special events surrounded by it for the entertainment of our community. The development also intends to house our new home, the corporate headquarters of the Orlando Magic. As you know, our move to the Amway Center was not complete, as 75% of our Orlando Magic staff still do not office in downtown. We actually office at our current corporate headquarters in Maitland. We're very excited about the opportunity to bring our entire Magic team back together in downtown Orlando and make a statement on the skyline of downtown. A full-service hotel and conference center is also anticipated for this development. We believe downtown is ready for a new full-service hotel with a conference facility that addresses the unmet needs of our downtown core. Not since the days of the Expo Center has downtown Orlando enjoyed conferences and conventions to help fill our businesses and our hotels. This will be a vibrant center to meet an emerging market demand generated by our venues, the residents of downtown, and to fill and expand the regional conference and meeting demands that we lost, as I said, when the Expo Center was closed. We intend to rebuild a state-of-the-art parking garage that meets the needs of the project and for the venues surrounding it, not the least of which are the Amway Center and the soon-to-be constructed soccer stadium. And there's a plan for new residential and retail growth so that the importance to the vitality of downtown is met with a true mixed-use facility. In summary, the plan calls for over 650,000 square feet of new development and a private investment that we now can say is approaching $200 million. Mayor and Commissioners, if you approve this contract, we will release our team to advance the final documentation for the closing of the property and begin work on the more detailed design of the project components. At this time, I'd like to turn to Rebecca Sutton, Chief Financial Officer for the City of Orlando, who will outline the terms of the potential purchase agreement. Rebecca?
Thank you, Alex. Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. Before I get started, I just want to review for everyone all of the activities that have brought us to this particular point. 2 years ago, we began the process, and we've actually had, I think today will be our, at City Council, will be our third advertised public hearing. And so there's been plenty of transparency with regard to the availability of this site, and we have yet to have another interested party other than the Sports and Entertainment District organization, subsidiary of the Orlando Magic. In addition, as we've moved forward, and particularly as we have focused on the Conference Convention Center, that required involvement of our CRA from the perspective of the CRA plan. And our process for that is always to refer that to our CRA advisory board, a board made up of downtown stakeholders, to determine that the project that we are undertaking is an appropriate use of the downtown tax increment. And so as a result, that's the process that we've gone through, bringing us to today. In the purchase contract that will be before you this afternoon, the total purchase price is $12,712,560.88. That includes an appraised value at $34.93 per square foot of $11,146,169.98. This does not include the value of the land for the reconstructed Pine Street. The reason for that is that we wanted to, as you are probably all familiar with, wanted to continue to develop our downtown grid system. And so we required of SED that Pine Street connection between the western portion of downtown to Huey, so that there would be I-4 access. We required that be that run through the development, and so as a result, we are not selling the right-of-way that we are requiring going through the middle of the property. The city will be responsible for the construction of Pine Street, and that will be constructed from state sources that we have available to us. We also asked for the MAGIC to provide us with an amount for the loss of use of those facilities, and specifically of the income-producing portion of the facilities, that is our garage. And so they are providing us with lost parking revenues for 5 years. We determined that our likelihood to try to develop that property on our own would probably come in about 5 years. And so as a result, we got replacement of that revenue stream. And by the way, under appraisal processes, this is a bit of a hybrid. Usually you value a piece of property based on its income potential, or you value it based on its development potential. But in our negotiations, we were able to get the MAGIC to agree that because of the timing of this particular transaction, that we needed to consider both of these, and in fact, they have agreed to do so. The construction will be in phases, and this is very important to the city and specifically to the Orlando Police Department. The initial phase will include the commercial offices that will house the Orlando Magic's headquarters, as Alex said a few minutes ago, and the parking garage, which not only provides parking for that office building, but also replaces, and actually more than replaces, the number of public spaces that we had in the Church Street garage. The future phase will occur after the city vacates the Orlando Police Headquarters building, and there will be then the residential complex, a hotel and convention center, and additional retail space that will be provided at that particular point in time. Importantly, our police headquarters will remain in place as long as we need for that to remain in place to get it replaced, but we will do that quickly because, as we've presented to you in the past, our police headquarters is obsolete. We need to update it. We need to make it technically current. We need to provide the appropriate kind of space for the police to function appropriately, and we need to have more citizen access than we have today in the police headquarters. So we will not have to vacate that building at closing. However, it was important that we sell that property so that we could get the capital that would come to us as a result of that property to help us to pay for the new police headquarters. We essentially now are going to be able to cash flow that as opposed to have to borrow it and have borrowing costs associated with it. So essentially, we will be provided with a below market lease of the building after closing, and that $100,000 is what we are currently transferring to our parking division for the police parking, and so we'll simply redirect that to the Orlando Magic, and we will get 100% of the cash flow benefit of the property value underneath the police headquarters. We will go ahead and maintain the building in terms of any kind of repair that needs to be done for our benefit, as well as provide the utilities. But we've been doing that, and that's been budgeted all along. That's really not a change from today. For the convention center, that's going to be approximately 40,000 square feet, and the CRA will provide a $1.7 million contribution. And as I indicated, we are required by our procedures to vet that with the CRA Advisory Board, which occurred in the last couple of weeks, and that they are making a recommendation today to move forward with that funding. The city will be entitled to use the convention center 6 days each year without facility rental cost, and will receive some scheduling priority for that convention center. I think most importantly, I think we need to look at why is this a good business deal for the city? And I think that initially we're selling the property for not only the appraised value, but for an amount above the appraised value for the loss of use and the loss of the income potential of the property. The appraised value of the land is comparable or slightly more than the appraised value that we spent on the parcels of the soccer stadium that we've purchased up to date. And I think this is something that I think a lot of times gets lost on folks is, as the mayor indicated earlier today, moving this property from a tax-exempt status into a taxable status is what I guess tongue-in-cheek call the gift that keeps on giving. That is that we're selling the property just as we would if we were a private sector organization. But by placing it on the tax roll, we get a stream of revenue coming into the city and the school district in the amount of from $52 million to $89 million. And this is just from zero growth, which I think everyone in the room would probably agree that zero growth is probably not what's going to happen, up to 4%. So even if the property in downtown appreciates at more than 4%, these numbers will be greater. But just from 0 to 4, we would get $52 million to $89 million for the CRA, and for our schools from $39 million to $67 million. And so I think that is a very, very important aspect of why this is such a good deal for the city. And then finally, our public parking is being replaced within the new development at no cost to the public. And that garage is one of our oldest and would require significant renovation in the next few years. So I think we're avoiding the cost associated with that. By the way, the assumptions that I used in the $52 million to $89 million are 30 years and no valuation growth to 4% valuation growth. In addition, the proceeds of this will assist in building a new OPD headquarters while retaining access to the current OPD headquarters until the new building is finished. And I think that's very, very important. And our lease for that is a below market lease. We're addressing a downtown CRA recommendation at a fraction of the expected cost. I think the expected cost of this is $6 to $7 million, not including land, and will be substantially funded by new tax revenue before it's provided for the building. If we just look at the tax revenue that will be provided by SED as a whole, we will get this $1.7 million back before we actually start having to pay it. And so, that's really an appropriate thing for us in that rechanneling that tax revenue back into that development to address a very critical downtown need is really an opportunity. Since we are requiring for Pine Street to be cut through the property, we're having that done in conjunction with this development. And then the development as well will provide additional hotel space and business activity, as we've indicated before. So I think in summary, I think the deal that we have on the table is good both from a perspective of economic development downtown and addressing needs downtown, as well as simply from a pure economic perspective. It's a great thing for us to be doing. So what are our next steps? Well, in the next 120 days, we're going to be executing and bringing to City Council a variety of documents, and these will be vetted individually with you. We'll brief you, provide you with information in advance of these items coming to you. First is the OPD lease and the elements of that. The second is the Convention Center Use and Participation Agreement, the environmental insurance policy, the development agreement, and the special assessment that's involved in the purchase agreement. We'll be closing within 60 days of the 121-day period ending, and it'll be a single closing for both auction properties. So we'll move forward with that. I think just in summary, we're available to answer questions. We have the attorneys that worked on this agreement in the room today, and we are more than willing to address any issues that you might have. I think there was a few questions with regard to demolition, and as was established in the original option agreement, demolition of the property is the responsibility of SED, not the city.
Okay, thank you, Thomas, Alex, and Rebecca. Obviously, this is on new business this afternoon at 2 o'clock, so questions, comments, thoughts? Commissioner Sheehan.
I just had a couple questions. I think it's amazing. This is great that y'all have put this together. You know, a lot of times we talk about these investments and they're not understood that they are investments, they're not gifts. Rebecca, when is the $1.7 million in increment expected to be repaid?
Okay. Actually, the present value of that stream of tax, the tax increment on our portion, not the total, but our portion of that building will recover in 30 years.
Yes.
So just adding that to that convention center,
right,
that portion will pay for the 1.7 in 30 years. The tax on the total development will pay for the 1.7 before we even have to pay for it.
Okay, yeah, that's what I wanted. That's what I was getting at. Thank you very much. And just one other questions about the communications tower at OPD. I know that now, is that a communications tower that we're renting for someone else? Because I know we had some issues with the communications tower when we did some other development, and it interrupted our service. Chief, he's shaking his head. Have we made sure that there's not going to be an interruption of service for the OPD?
Yes, in fact, we have already provided or procured or agreed with the county to place the tower, the new tower, on top of the courthouse. That accomplishes several things.
Okay.
One, it eliminates some, I guess, dark spots, if you will, in the reception that our police get, and then also we're taking that opportunity to update that equipment at that time. Because of the way that we have to do this to not have an interruption of service, we have to put that in, test it,
right,
get it running appropriately before we cut over to that, and then salvage the current tower that we have on the property.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we learned from the last kind of mistake, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay.
And also, I should point out that we will be doing that during the 120-day investigation period. We'll make that transition.
Great. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Lynham.
Mayor and Council, all the agreements we've had for redevelopment in Paramore, this is the most difficult one for me. I'm at a loss because I thought the sale would be far more. I understand some of this, but maybe I'm the only person who didn't read that August news report in the Sentinel that Mark Slew did. I didn't even know about it. But I don't understand selling something then renting it back. I just can't get my arms around that. It's just befuddles me. It's just silly because we're losing money. And I know Alex mentioned Staples. I walked every block in L.A. between Staples and the Garment District. And I know that whole district, even before you get to the Garment District, when it was being redeveloped, that district benefited quite well. And that's been 10 years ago, over 10 years ago. But I want the Magic to have this property, but I'm feeling uncomfortable with the rental. I understand we're using the same amount that we've just purchased property for the Major League Soccer, which I'm in agreement. I think it's, you agree when it's cheap when you're buying it. You just don't agree when it's cheap when you sell it. That's where I am right now. So I'm having a few issues with that. And I did hear Rebecca talk about that 52 to 89 million was over 30 years. Because I was like, boy, if we're going to do that in a year, this is a home run. But of course, I understand the piece there. I don't have a problem with the conference center. We tend to move stuff around quite a bit. But right now, Mayor, I just have a few more questions. I just got my document that Byron delivered to my office on Thursday, but it was not given to me. I didn't realize it had been. He had promised it. And I will read it between now and 2 o'clock. I thank you for the report. But this is, in my opinion, one of my most difficult, and we've had lots of contracts regarding lots of things, and this is the only one I feel negative about. Just straight up don't like it.
Becca.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that from a purely financial position, the option 2 property is going to be approximately $5 million that we're selling at this particular point in time. If we did not have that cash to devote to the police department, the cost of taking that $5 million to the market to get bonds would cost us $200,000 a year. So essentially, we're in the clear $100,000 a year by buying the property now, getting that capital in our hands so that we can use it to replace our building, and then paying a below-market lease of $100,000. So that's our logic that we used to determine that was an appropriate way to go.
And Mayor, I still haven't gotten, and I need to maybe talk in private, some of the other conditions that will go along with the sale, even with the payment of rent, which I still can't wrap my arms around. But and I heard what you just said, but
I'll have Byron come brief you more between now and 2. Commissioner Stewart.
Good. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. A couple just general questions. I guess probably when we looked a few months back, Chief, when you gave a presentation about the condition, it may be worthwhile to have us kind of somebody forward to us that location. I'm trying to find it, and I can't find the presentation. I've gotten some comments from constituents who are concerned about why are we moving. And that presentation was a great presentation. I'd like to share that with them because I think it identifies a lot of those conditions that we currently have that will be better streamlined in another location. The second thing is the part of this discussion is in moving OPD is into a location someplace else in downtown Orlando, in which we felt like we could get either with a very minimal cost or a trade of other land. And I don't know where we are in that negotiation and moving forward. And that brings up my last question, which is where are we practically in time frame? Okay, so the idea is 120 days from now we have a contract. 60 days later we actually execute the agreement. Where are we in terms of moving this down the path in such a way that OPD is now moving forward? That's demolition. I mean, this is. Are we looking at 5, 6, 7 years down the road? Are we looking at 6 months to start something and do something else? Those are the kind of questions I think that we all have.
Commissioner, we have it became rather complicated with the federal government related to the land swap that we had proposed with Link. So we're looking more at a negotiated, straight-out purchase of that property, with Link's remaining responsible for the any environmental cleanup related to that, and it would be our intention to bring that agreement to council prior to either along with or prior to closing on this transaction, so that we would be in a position to immediately begin
move forward on both at the same time.
Design on the police station.
Good.
I might also add that in the meantime, there's been a lot of conceptual discussions with OPD to determine what the requirements are, kind of, as I say, more from a conceptual level, and that's been done under a continuing services agreement. We will obviously go through a full procurement process when we get to that point for the new building. But at this particular point, we're looking and in the process of negotiating with Links for that same site. It's just that we were not able to I guess, resolve all the issues that the land swap created.
Well, I understand that in the process you can't move forward on some things without having some decisions made on some others. So I mean, that's easy to do. But I guess the concern I have when I begin to look forward on this is that how long are we planning on, in your mind, how long are we planning on renting that location over there for $100,000 a year? Probably 2 years.
I would say 2 to 3.
Okay.
Depending on I can't anticipate right now what the construction period would be on the new site. There has to be some site preparation because, as you know, it's not ready to build on right this moment. Right. So I think a lot of those things will come into play. I believe that it is our desire to do that as soon as possible, and I would not anticipate that it would be more than 3 years. Okay. So in any event, we're still avoiding $200,000 a year in interest cost on the sales price of that option property. Yeah.
Well, I guess when you're looking at this, you have, I think Alex's desire is to move as quickly as they can to get to access to the property to do the things that they want to do. Our desire is to move as quickly as possible to get to a location that's ideal for OPD. I mean, we're in that it's kind of that time crunch as an area, and I think that ends up having some bearing on the financial portion of that. Explain to me, go back, and I just didn't catch it in terms of the explanation. The $100,000 is roughly half of what we're currently putting back from the parking revenue fees a year. Tell me, I'm trying to figure out.
In each year's budget from the general fund, there is a transfer of $100,000 from the general fund to the parking fund for OPD's use of the Church Street station or of the Church Street parking garage. We're simply taking that $100,000 and redirecting it to our lease costs. So from the general fund's position, there will not be a change in general fund expenditures as a result of doing this. And then from the perspective of OPD parking, in the meantime, we've provided for that from other city sources, other city facilities. So we'll have convenient parking for police to continue to use that site.
And the last quick question is a copy of the presentation. Some of those bullet points that you've made just really make it concise in terms of being able to explain this. If I guess probably send us a copy of the presentation.
We will be glad to do that today.
Because I think that's an important part for us to share.
Commissioner, I think Alex said this, but I believe it's to be the intention of SED that they can move forward with a portion of the development even before the police station is taken down, so they could do the office complex and probably the plaza, but not the convention center and the hotel until the police station comes down.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Commissioner Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I appreciate everybody coming in the presentation, and as I've said in the past, anybody that is going to invest their own money in the city deserves my thanks, and so we appreciate you, folks at Magic, being willing to take the time and invest in our community. I would like to talk a little bit about the convention center and get some more questions there, but before I do, just a clarification on the board. As a guy in the real estate business, the notion of a sale leaseback is rather common. It's a concept that you've got to get a little education on. But economics aside, I think when Byron or the team explains it, a sale leaseback provides flexibility on both sides, and it is rather common. So again, economics aside, the concept is pretty normal. But I don't know if it's a question for Thomas, Rebecca, but lead me through the convention center piece. We put up $1.7 million. What do we get for that? Do we have any ownership? Who covers the downside? What happens if there's upside? Who gets that? How does that work?
The total estimated cost of the convention center is about $6 to $7 million.
Okay.
We have no risk in any kind of cost overruns for that. It's entirely a private development, and so as a result, we're making a specific dollar contribution, and there will be an obligation to get that convention center built and opened as a result of the agreement that we will bring you later on the convention contribution agreement. From the perspective of ownership, it will not be owned by the city because we would like for that to be on the tax roll. Mm-hmm. As I indicated, that then gives us a tax revenue stream that not only pays for our investment in that convention center, but also assists us and the school district in providing the services that we would provide from tax increment in the case of the CRA and for our children in the case of the school district. From the perspective of the operations will be private operations, similar to the way that our downtown theater is privately operated. Our downtown grocery is privately operated. It's very, very consistent with the other things that we've done before. The contribution that we are providing is a contribution, and frankly is a modest contribution to the convention center that would typically be expected from governments across the nation trying to get convention spaces downtown. And that then, no one hotel would be able to house all of the participants of a capacity level convention in that center. And so as a result, there is a public element associated with this that all of our hotels and all of our businesses downtown will benefit from, and that is really the source of the justification of spending the 1.7. And I guess just the fact that we get it paid back is sort of a plus from the perspective of having this as a private organization. Did I answer your question there?
You did. Thank you. And I guess one of the things we try to do in the workshop is share our thoughts and put full disclosure. I am comfortable with the transaction and the purchase price. I've reviewed the appraisal. I think it's a fair price. It's supported by the appraisal. I am struggling a bit with the $1.7 million piece, and I've shared that with staff, and I'm open for education. But my thought is, if there is a clear market demand for that, then I think either the Magic or a joint venture partner should be willing to step up and make that investment. And if there isn't market demand for that, I'm not 100% convinced we as a city should take that risk, because the only real reason to do that is to spur downtown activity, and I haven't seen any empirical evidence that that will happen. It's anecdotal that we think we'll get restaurants and retail shopping from conventioneers, and we might, but that's the part I'm struggling with. So I support the acquisition and the price, but I am struggling with the convention piece because, again, if there's market demand, the private sector should be doing that. And if there's not market demand, I'm not sure at this stage of the game we should be putting up $1.7 million for that. So that's where I am.
I would just add a couple things.
Please.
I have had many conversations with Gary Sane before he passed away about the fact that if we had a facility of this type in the downtown, we would attract a lot of conventions that we can't currently host in the downtown. Secondly, the hotel that the Magic will construct would not support this convention center. It needs the other hotels in the area. So if they were making a straight business decision on what type of facility should we build associated with their hotel, it wouldn't be the size and the magnitude of this convention center. The Embassy Suites, the Boheme, the Aloft, all the other hotels in our downtown are going to benefit from having a facility that can host conventions that will have spillover room nights for all of the hotels. So part of the rationale for some public investment is it's more than benefiting just that particular project. And then thirdly, the important aspect to me is I really don't want to own or operate the thing. The convention center, the Orange County Convention Center, which obviously is of magnitude certainly much larger than what this facility is going to be, is subsidized in operation with tourist development tax up to $10 million a year. And then you know that as we were going through this venues deal, they were talking about $150 million. It's $150 million worth of maintenance and improvements, R&R, over the next several years. So there's a substantial expense. And I remember when we did operate the Expo Center, one of the reasons we thought it was a good deal to go ahead, shouldn't be telling you all this, Alex, that you're going to be operating that thing at a loss, but one of the reasons we were inclined to do the Florida Interactive Entertainment Academy there was the expense of maintaining and operating the Expo Center, and that was an expense that we didn't want at the time.
Right. Well, again, those are compelling reasons, and they have validity. My sense is if the Magic or a joint venture partner is willing to take the downside risk, that tells me that they have done their own analysis and they think it's going to be successful, or else they wouldn't take that risk. And so, again, I'm open to continuing education on it, but I think given our limited resources as a city and where we are coming out of a tough economic time, I'm just not sure it's the best use of our resources, and that's what I'm struggling with.
Okay. Commissioner Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's analyze this a little bit further. CRA is an institution where it collects X amount of revenues. Revenues that they pay in taxes is going back to the community. This money belongs to the people in downtown. It's not for us to decide how they're going to invest it. We get advice from them, and we basically say yea or nay on how that affect us as a whole. So we need to clarify that the CRA money is basically the people downtown telling us they like to use it in a certain way. It's their money. So if they want to use $1.7 million as an investment in order for us, which is going to be recovered in no time, because according to some of the numbers I saw, 52 to 89 millions in 30 years, am I correct? And then for the schools, 39 to 67. Then this is a very small portion of money we're investing compared to the return. I think that's a good investment. I think that's a good use of our monies. And I think this convention center, which is a question I'm going to be asking, is going to bring a lot of construction jobs. It's going to bring a lot of permanent jobs. And it's going to have a great effect on the economy of downtown. So that's another marginal effect it's going to have in our downtown development. So 1.7, I guess what we need to clarify is the use, and Thomas, I hope you can go ahead, and, since you're standing there, please give us a very brief synopsis of how the CRA works for everybody to understand, because this is going to create controversy. And it's my understanding that once the CRA is established, from that point on, the revenue that is obtained stays downtown, right, from the increase in the property value. So that money is basically belongs to those investors or those property owners in that area in order to be reinvested in the area that is we're talking about. Am I correct on that?
Yes, sir.
So in other words, it's not coming from the general fund, so it's not our money. It's not everybody else's money nowhere else. It's those people over there that they want to invest on this particular
Commissioner,
project.
this one's a really simple one to understand because you'd start with a taxable value of the property in the CRA in a given baseline year, which I forget which.
And that's what I mean, and that's what I'm just trying to raise.
This one's zero.
Exactly.
So 100% of
It goes
the
to-
money that comes on the tax roll goes to CRA.
Exactly, and I'm with that. So I just want to explain that so people know that this is not money coming from the general fund. This is coming from the CRA, which is not for us to decide entirely how it's going to be used, but for the people that are involved in the CRA to give us advice, and then I guess we're the final vote.
Well, and yes, Commissioner, as the mayor said, on the fundamentals, and as you will hear later on today, the advisory board for the CRA has advised, has recommended to you that you approve the 1.7. And yes, we are statutorily bound as a CRA to redirect our funds within our geographic footprint, so that the money generated out of this CRA has to be invested in this CRA. Consistent with that, I'd like to go back earlier and point out a couple of things that, generally speaking, about this industry. Please, and I'll get you all the study from the GAO if you'd like to have that, but please note that the convention, or the conference center, convention center industry is a unique one throughout the country. In many downtowns in particular, and we know that we're unique, that most downtowns are the heart of whatever convention and conference center facilities you have in that city, because most downtowns don't have an area like we have to our southwest, out in Orange County and down along I-Drive because of the parks. But this industry is different in that the risk associated with the meeting business, it's very difficult to get completely underwritten in a typical debt situation. When you go to a lender and you're trying to build a hotel with a convention center, very seldom do the numbers from the market study and the feasibility study solid enough to say to the lender that if you make this loan to build not only the hotel and the rooms and all the ancillary things that come with that, but this meeting space over here on the side, that you can show definitively over the period of the debt incurred that there will be enough group business to address that debt, to service that debt. And so, again, as the GAO report suggested, many municipalities invest because they see a direct and an indirect return on that investment in many ways, and we've talked about some of those today, and we can document some others. I'd also like to point out, though, just general information for the Commission, that this is not unusual, even in our midst. When you look at a privately owned convention center like the Gaylord Palms, Osceola County is heavily invested in that. And so this is not something that's not done. It's something that's I don't want to see is done every day, but it is not uncommon that public funds are used to invest in this type facility. Lastly, I'd like to say, consistent with what has been said by Rebecca earlier, in each negotiation or even discussion that I've been privy to relative to a conference center or convention center in downtown with their private developer, each and every one of those potential developers on the front end of that discussion has asked, is the city or the CRA able and willing to invest in this? Because they recognize they cannot underwrite it with the usual debt and equity situation, package that you put together. And in the formal situation that the mayor and some of you who've been here for several years will recall back from 2008, when another negotiation was going on about a similar facility in downtown on a different site, the number just being discussed, the order of magnitude of the investment the public investment being discussed with that conference center and hotel was $3 to $6 million. So I agree with Rebecca that there's value here. I think that the 60,000 people or more and probably more, that's at one convention a week, one conference a week that we could get, that you put on the streets, and the $860 per party that Visit Orlando says that they spend will be a real lifeline, a lifeblood for businesses that exist here, for downtown restaurants, and could spur additional development. As we go to, again, further establishing downtown as a destination of choice. We've all recognized that weakness between 6 and 10. We've all recognized that we don't have, and going back to Gary saying in conversations we had with him, that we don't have a multiplicity of first-class restaurants in downtown. This is why. Because we don't have the people at the time of the day that will spend the money per plate in order to service the investments or generate a positive return on the investments for such facilities. If you ask me, and I know you haven't, but if you ask me what I want for Christmas, ever since I've been here, it's always been a hotel and a conference center. That is the one thing that our downtown lacks, and I would just have you remember one more time, I'll just point out to you one last time, that we are unique because we do have to compete with an area. Normally, downtown would be the default position for conference center and meeting space in a city. In every other city around the country, it is a default site.
Only other place.
Absolutely.
That doesn't count.
I'm not, and I just want to reiterate, I'm totally in support of this project. I just wanted to make clear for the public and for everybody that this money, $1.7 million, is not coming from us. It's not coming from the general fund. And I think we have to reiterate that for people to understand, because I know some people is going to go out there and say, sure, well, the city's spending this money. It's not coming from us. One thing. And since we're talking about this, can I ask, do anybody has an idea of how many construction jobs, any idea, or permanent jobs this will be creating at any given time? Any estimates? It's good information to put out there.
Commissioner, we haven't done a full estimate yet on construction jobs, but suffice it to say that, a development of this magnitude, which is going to take over a 5-year period because of the staging of it, as you've seen, would be several hundred, over the course of a 5-year period. Okay. Because, we hope to start with the garage and the office building for the first couple of years, and hopefully by the time those are done, the police station, the police headquarters is obviously going to be another construction project that will incur several hundred, and then we will continue with the rest of our property. So we still haven't done those full estimates. We'll come back to you during the development agreement stage and give you a clearer picture as to the number of jobs that the development should produce, but suffice it to say, it should be several.
Since I have you there, how many jobs are we bringing from Maitland?
Well, we have about 200 full-time employees, and I would estimate that about 50 of them are currently housed in the Amway Center. So in round numbers, about 150 employees would be moved from Maitland to downtown. Okay.
Well, thank you. Rebecca, one more question. What's the cost of the demolition, OPD demolition? Do we have any idea?
I don't have any numbers readily at hand. I've seen them before, but keep in mind that the demolition is not a cost that the city will bear. for any of
I
for any
understand,
of it.
but I just-
I can get that for you, but I don't have it right now.
Yes, and the reason I'm asking that is because, once again, to let the public know how much money are we saving on doing this, and the benefit of this project as a whole, you know, getting property taxes, a revenue on property taxes, instead of, like right now, we're not getting anything, and this is a good deal all around.
I think just as an order of magnitude, not a real specific number, but the demolition, I'm told, is around $2 million, maybe more.
Thank you.
That's sort of the minimum number. And obviously, we have there's going to be some aspects of this demolition. As you know, we're not just talking about a concrete structure. We've got gasoline station there. We have a wash station and so forth. So it's not your straight-up demolition. And we'll probably, have some discoveries along the way. But $2 million at least.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for doing such a great presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner. We're back to Commissioner Lynham and then Commissioner
Yes,
Sheehan.
just a couple of observations and questions. I know, and I appreciate Commissioner Gray saying this, I am really familiar with sale lease. I am. If you've been here 15 years, you do that kind of stuff. But I still didn't like our paying it. That's all. I was just figuring we're getting ready to do a new police station. We shouldn't be paying anything. We ought to be saving every penny we can get toward the new police station. I've been here long enough to know that police station has been moving for 15 years, about 15 years, 14 years. It's been moving. We bought land somewhere, and that's already developed into something else. We aren't even going to that space. So I'm really supportive of the police department being housed somewhere else in a more modern, more technologically equipped for us to work smart and not as hoard, but I support that relocation since 1999 or 2000. It's been forever. I just don't even know the exact date. But that's a no-brainer for me. I just wanted every penny we could save to go toward our building, the new building. Simple as that. The other is the CRA is the city council. We do make decisions on that money. We're going to make it today by voting. That's how we do it. But it was the city council that started the CRA, and there have been some statewide issues and county and regional issues about CRAs, but we are it, and it's tax dollars earned on top of whatever your base is for your taxes. Whatever's above that, I think Mayor Dyer said, well, it's zero now, so everything else is win. We get that, but I just want to clarify it. I do support the convention space. I was one of those people who did not like the idea of getting rid of the expo center. It was the only space we had downtown. A little danky, but I mean, it was better than nothing. And this opportunity to bring people downtown, I feel, and I think I talked to Thomas very briefly, not too much because it was a no-brainer for me, to want that space downtown within walkable distances, or at least get on the limo and go where you got to go, just made sense for me to do this after losing, I don't even know how much space we had over there at this expo center. Do you remember the square footage? But it seems maybe this is not quite comparable. But I thought the conditions negotiated could have been better. I would have preferred more than 6 days, a year, for the city. I mean, I just think when you're in negotiations, you go to the highest point you can. And 6 days for a whole year, I would have gotten 10. I just thought we could have done better. I don't know who negotiated that one. So I thought we could have done better on those conditions in 10 days instead of 6. I thought we shouldn't pay the rent. It's not being just, a squatter or anything, Chief. I just don't believe we ought to pay the rent. We ought to save that $100,000 to go toward the new facility. That's all. And I'm hard-pressed getting my arms around that. And I still don't like it. I simply do not like that piece. Even though I understand the principle, it is still money spent that I do not like. But other than that, I've been waiting for this to happen for many years. I mean, it's just something that's not new any more than where the arena is now wasn't new, where anything isn't new. We've been having these conversations for years and years, but all of a sudden some people come to city council for the first time in 15 years and think it's new, or read an article and think it's new. But I can't get my arms around that piece. Thank you.
And you're right, the police station was announced before I was ever mayor.
I know.
I know you were here.
Yes.
Commissioner Sheehan may have been here.
Yeah.
All right, Commissioner Sheehan?
Thank you, Mayor. And I did have some questions about financing actually the $1.7 million as well. And basically, we're going to be building a regional facility and asking one developer to finance it, and then we're actually kind of helping to pay for that because it's going to be a regional facility. It's going to benefit everybody in downtown. So that gave me a sense of comfort. And, it is a risky investment that we're asking them to make, and we're helping them incentivize it. But I'm going to tell you about another risky investment that this council made. Not everybody was here at the time, but when we first did Thornton Park Central, we incentivized that garage because they couldn't get a loan. It's the same kind of scenario for the size of facility that we're building. And I would say that if anybody thinks that Thornton Park Central wasn't a catalytic development for Thornton Park, I'd say you're crazy. I mean, for every dollar, I think it generated $40 in increment in value. So, again, sometimes we make investments that people might not understand at the outset, and then later on you can look back and go, wow, that was a really good investment. And even at the time, some of the members of council we're like, okay, you got spunk, we're going to show you this doesn't work, and pat me on the head kind of thing. And at the end of the day, it was a very, very good investment. So I feel comfortable with the amount of investment, the reason why we're making the investment, because it's going to be a regional facility to benefit all of downtown, not just this one development. And because of the size it's going to be, it has to in order to be that regional scale. So that's why I support it. I again asked that was the first thing that I asked Thomas was, why are we putting $1.7 million in this? And now that I've looked at it from the perspective of what it's going to mean and the size and scale that it's going to be for downtown, it makes sense to me. It's a good investment. And the other thing, whenever I go to conventions, I never rent a car because I want to really experience that downtown. And first thing I do is I go to the visitor center and find out where I can eat, where I can go, and that kind of thing. And I think a lot of people, when they go to conventions, do that. And to say that having 500 to 1,000 people on the streets is not going to make sense between 6 and 11 in order to incentivize some restaurants and some of the kind of retail development that we'd like to see. I think, again, it's just a really good investment to bring people here. And I know my own habits when I go to conventions and when I go to cities, and I know that a lot of people do that. So I think this is going to, again, it's a good investment. It makes sense. And I'm excited to be able to be a part of it and support it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Commissioner Stewart.
A couple of questions, and let me I understand Jim's concern, and I think probably what frustrates me, because I come from the same kind of background, is that we don't really have a lot of measurable outcomes on some of these things. One of the challenges we've had with EDC for years has been, at least in my mind, has been that we invite jobs to come in, we announce that there's jobs coming in, and there's nothing that comes back at the end of that says what jobs actually came in. So the idea of the investment we made in the Publix, I think all of us would say anecdotally, is great. But do we have a measurement that says, here's where we were before, here's where we were afterwards, and what's happening in that process? So I've got a feeling when you begin to look at this type of investment, I'm looking at towards Thomas, I guess. I guess the idea really is, Thomas, the moment we make this switch, do we have an idea what the impact of 87 bars and restaurants in downtown Orlando are from a financial standpoint? And then is there a way to measure that 5 years from now so we can come back and say, hey, there has actually been an increase and not an anecdotal increase in terms of what's occurred? So that's the hardest question we always have to answer, because I think it's the right decision. But when we walk out of here, constituents are asking us, give me the dollars and cents decision about it. So what are we doing in terms of helping to try to define that portion of it?
First, to answer your first question, no, we're not, unfortunately, because the market studies have not been done and the projections are not there, backed up by statistical data. We can't say, precisely what the outcome will be. The hypothetical I gave in my portion of the presentation, I think, was a very low-end one. If we could attract one of these meetings By the way, the size, the 40,000 square feet is not something that just came about arbitrarily. That's the size that would be needed in order to seat 1,000 people in one room in banquet style and have the prerequisite breakout space to address that crowd. So you can bring in conferences up to 1,000 delegates. We've heard from Visit Orlando that there are 800 such meetings between 500 and 1,000. We took 750 as the median average there and said if we get one of those a week and we skip 2 weeks and we got 50 of them a year, that puts 60,000 people. The average party is 1.6 people that come to the conference. So that will put 60,000 people on the streets of downtown Orlando at night. And as the Commissioner just said, we all do the same thing at conferences. At about 5 o'clock, if we get tired of listening to all the presentations, we're finished, we go up to the room, we throw down all the paperwork, we take off the tie if we have one, and we go out. We don't want to really get in a cab if we don't have to. We certainly don't want to get in a car and risk getting lost. So we want to walk. That's why it's important that you're centrally located in a walkable district. We want to walk and we want to enjoy the different amenities and see how they stack up to ours back home, the various restaurants and entertainment options and retail options. As we're seeing that, and so we don't have the statistical data now. Now, we do have an opportunity, I think, with your direction, to start the process that would memorialize this data, capture this data moving forward. And there's only one other caveat, though, anecdotal, that it is, Commissioner, that I would inject here. A conference center is the type of amenity that rarely cash flows positively, just like a performing arts center. It's the same type of amenity. Yet, if you are going to be a world-class downtown, you have to provide these amenities, or you're not going to compare, you're not going to compete, you're not going to stack up against other communities that do that. Again, when it comes to, there's a reason why there were only 3 long-term projects in the strategic plan, just 3 of them. 2 of them we've done. Keeping the magic in downtown, that's key, Amway Center and our partnership there, a performing arts center, and a conference center. Because they recognize, as I said in the slides, that it was these were the highest impact catalytic projects for a downtown over a long period of time. So I would add this, Byron has said, I think Rebecca said, and Alex said, there's several agreements pertinent to this particular deal that are yet to come before you, and that will address many of these details that I think will give you an enhanced sense of confidence that this has been well vetted and things have been thought through. So I would say that you still have that to look forward to. And then before I sit down, I'd say one other thing about this conference center business, because it is a unique entity, a unique business, and we can address this in negotiations. Typically, there are 4 things that are important for a successful conference center hotel. The first is the site. You need a site in an area where people will visit, a city or an area that people will visit. If you just create a conference center in a city that nobody wants to visit, it doesn't mean people are going to visit it. We have that. We're the most visited site on the planet, so we have that. The second is the flag or the brand of the hotel. That's got to be made. That's extremely important. If you go to independent, Roberts Place, it's probably not going to work. You need a nationally or internationally known flag, and I think it could. An internationally known flag. The third, and this is one that's not very well known until you get into the industry, the third, just as vital as the flag, is the operating entity. We should care who the Magic hire to operate the hotel and conference center. That's going to be key. You need to bring in an entity with a proven track record of owning and or operating hotels with conference or convention centers, because it's a different animal than a standalone hotel. So if we do all of that, I think we have a really great chance of being successful. Again, 1 a week, 60,000 people on the streets, that's a hypothetical. I think that's low. But most importantly to me, it's another one of those amenities that we need to be able to say, we need to realize if we actually aspire to be a world-class downtown, and obviously we do.
Let me just ask some questions and later on I don't want to belittle the point here, but here's one question that comes to mind. Partnering with somebody else versus a standalone center. What's those related costs? We do have now kind of an idea that it's $35 a square foot for the land, and what's the cost to build that building? And if we had that property in downtown Orlando, we were going to go build it, what would it look like in terms of size and square? Somebody has done that study somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
And so the idea is that I hear, hey, look, we could spend $6 or $7 million. I would like to hear it's going to cost $7.3 million, and we're going to have to staff it. That's what I would like to hear from you. So don't answer now, but we have those studies. I'd like to see them.
Sure.
And the second thing is, I think what's hidden in all this discussion is that there are some impact fees that will have to be paid back to the city to help offset some of the setup and cost and those kind of things. So the assumption is that two things, that we're going to have to pay some money. We would pay money to have them come and take this property. This is a commercial development that would pay in impact fees.
Correct.
To help cover those costs. So that's okay.
Correct.
And then when we look at some of the other locations that we've incentivized them with impact fees. So now the question is, are we going to put 1.7 and then come back and have $1 million in impact fees that we're going to have to waive? I mean, those are the kind of questions that come to mind in the future. I don't know that that's the case. I don't think that's the case, because I think we've got a good, strong commercial development with a great partner. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, thanks. The implication outside of this room is you're doing this, and you're also going to do this and this and this. You just haven't disclosed it yet. I don't think that's really the case. And I want to make sure that as we look at these impact fees, that information on impact on transportation, on sewer, stormwater, those issues are really addressed, and they're addressed in a fair way, that we've got formulas that will accomplish that task as they come forward. I think that helps offset those fears outside of this room that you're going to give away more. I don't think we are. So I want to make sure that, but those are some of the issues I'd like to see us kind of make sure we're addressing as we move down forward on this process. Thank you very much. I'm sorry to take some time.
No problem. Commissioner Ortiz.
Thank you. Quick question, Thomas. If the advisory board to the CRA decides they don't want this project, will you bring that project to us?
Yes. I mean, that recommendation will be made in the meeting later today.
If they didn't care, the advisory board did not approve, or
they did not approve. I'm sorry. If the advisory board did not approve, then I would come to you and convey that to you and tell you that the advisory board does not approve this.
But my point is, for the most part, whatever you bring here has been approved by the advisory board.
So far, everything that I've brought to you in the
Since
6.5 years I've been
there's
here.
never been a proposal or project brought to the CRA that was not approved by the advisory board.
I just want to make that point. This nation is run on speculations. There's no certainty in any kind of future. We have to be responsible. We have to do responsible speculations, and I think you guys do a great job doing this. Stock market is run on speculations, so the economy of this nation is depending on that. I think you guys do a good job doing an assessment of what we have at hand and the possibilities. And so far, I think you guys have proven that the risk we have taken have been positive risks. So I commend you guys, and I'm looking forward to the outcome of this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for a good overview of this. Council, this will be one of many agreements that will come back before you, so you're probably going to be, over the next 6 months, get tired of the same subject, but you're going to see it, and you're going to vet it, and you're going to have a lot of fun doing it. Rebecca.
Just one last thing, particularly dealing with, I guess, I just wanted to point out to the commissioners that the origin, really, of incorporating this convention center in this development it actually came out of some studies that SED undertook with regard to retail activity along the Church Street corridor. And as we bring back the participation agreement, we will provide those, some of the details about that. I think that will answer a lot of the questions that you put forward today. But this did not come out of thin air. It came out of really some very in-depth evaluation on the part of SED to determine how to make this very, I guess, pioneering and catalytic development be very, very successful and benefit not only this property, but benefit the entire Church Street corridor. So we'll bring that back to you in advance of bringing you the participation agreement for the convention center so that you can consider that in context. Once again, today, all that is being done is really providing, I guess, enabling decision from CRA to transfer that money to the city contingent on this agreement that goes forward. So I think there's going to be plenty of time to vet that issue very thoroughly with some real data.
Okay, thank you very much, and that will conclude our workshop for today. Thank you for tuning in.